Asalamualaikum guys, welcome back to my channel. I pray that you are all in the best of health and iman. If you are new, welcome. My name is Nafisa. I am a Muslimah, mental health and relationship coach. So if you're interested in being coached in those areas, you can find me over on my website, which I will leave linked in the description box down below. But over here on YouTube, I make Islamic lifestyle as well as dawah content. So if you're interested in that, then definitely make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. So sisters, today's video, we are looking at the bright side, okay? The positive side of characteristics that a man can have that we as women, I believe sometimes we overlook and we don't appreciate enough. Okay, this can go for whether a man is a father, whether he is a son, but I am looking at this more so from the angle of being in a romantic relationship. So if your husband has one of these characteristics or all of these characteristics, you have a very good man. And I think we as women, we need to appreciate the goodness in our men, and even before that, notice it and appreciate it more than we already do. So without any further ado, here are the 5 things that we should cherish in our men. The first characteristic goes without saying, and that is a man who truly fears Allah, but specifically he shows it in his character. I think this is something the Prophet ﷺ mentioned when he said that if a man comes for your daughter's hand in marriage, and if he has the deen and the character, and in that the Prophet ﷺ is showing us that there is a difference between the two. There's a difference between someone who seems outwardly to be quote unquote religious, but then when the person has the character that matches with the religiosity that they appear to be, that is really when you have a good man. And so sisters, for us, if we have a man who has good character, a husband that treats us well, let's not take this for granted. It is so difficult nowadays to find men who are genuine, men who are kind. Kindness goes a long way, but it sometimes these days so hard to find. You will find a man who never misses his prayers, he's always at the masjid, he's always reading Quran, but when it comes to the way he treats his family members, he is so cruel, he is so mean, he is so abusive, and that shows the lack of character. So if you have a man, if you have a husband at home who is kind to you, he is honest to you, he appreciates you, he helps you with the little things, he has empathy for you, sister, you have a good man. And even though he may not do so many other things, I think it's worth you paying attention and recognizing that he is also good in some way. You know, human beings, as we all are, none of us come in complete packages. There is no human being that come in a complete package. And sometimes that is the disservice we do to ourselves and to each other, because we almost expect for others to be perfect. And so when we see something other than perfection, we're like, oh my God, and they act like they're so holy. But that is the thing. There is no human being that is perfect. Myself speaking to you right now, I have my own flaws. I have my strengths, but I have my own flaws. But instead of always looking at the downside, look at the positive side of your husband. If he is kind to you, sister, trust me, it will go a long way in giving you peace of mind in your marriage, because there are too many men out there these days who lack that simple thing of having good character and being kind. The character of your husband is the person that you're actually going to live with. It's almost not going to matter whether he prays 5 times a day, goes for Hajj, whether he reads Quran. If he doesn't implement that, if none of that shows in the way he treats other people, you will suffer in that marriage. So if you have a husband who is kind to you, he is good to you, he is honest, he is trustworthy, he has all the good characteristics, he is kind, wallahi sister, you need to make more effort in thanking Allah for giving you a good man. So that is the first characteristic of a good man, the first characteristic that you should cherish in your Muslim men. is that if the man has good character coupled with the fear of Allah, wallahi, your marriage will go so far. It will go so far, inshallah ta'ala. The second type of man that you should cherish is the man who provides for you. Sisters, the ones who don't have this know how valuable it is. The sisters who have to work extra long hours to provide for themselves, to provide for their children, they understand how important this is. They understand the value of this. But some of us who have these type of characteristics, but some of us who have the men who are providing for us, sometimes we can be so ungrateful. And sometimes it's easy for us to forget that actually he goes out and he works so hard and he provides for us. Sometimes the issue that us women have is we almost look at it as a thing of competition. The second you mention that the man works hard and he provides for you, then we want to start saying, yeah, but I do a lot as well. I take care of all the children. I'm at home all day doing and the kids are screaming. It's not a competition. The fact that you acknowledge and praise your man for providing for you doesn't mean that you are doing any less. It doesn't mean what you contribute is any less important, right? But I think it's important for us women to also acknowledge and be grateful that we can even have men who provide for us. Because in this day and age, a lot of men out there these days, they are not interested in taking care of their families. They're not. They're not interested in providing for their wives. They're not interested in providing for their children. They just want the title of I'm a husband and I come home and I control the house. But when it comes to actually taking the responsibility that comes with being a man, which is partly to provide for your family, a lot of men nowadays are not interested in doing that. And I think especially for my generation, because I am a millennial. I'm in my early 30s. And the problem I find nowadays that we're having in my generation is that we have men who are getting really upset by the fact that women have degrees and women are so much more learned, right? And some of them are earning far more than their partners, than their male partners. And I'm finding that a lot of men are really angry about that. Why? Because they feel like, well, don't bring your degree issue to me because that doesn't contribute to a relationship. But the question then that I have is, where were you when she was in school studying and building a life and building a career and working hard? What were you doing? Because from what I've seen from where I live in the part of London where I grew up, was that a lot of the men in my generation, back then they were boys, they just weren't listening at school. They were far more interested in making money the fast way. They were all about, making money the quick way. Okay, we don't come from a background where we have money, so what's the fastest way I could get money? And so they neglected their education. They didn't think about the future and that the lifestyle that they were getting themselves into is not going to be sustainable for them in the future. So they got involved in all of these things that literally got them nowhere, wasted their time. Some of them ended up in jail. Some of them just ended up not passing their exams at school. And so now what I have in my generation is women who far outdo their men. And now it's making the men feel insecure. Now, of course, that is not for all of the men. That is just for some of the men who just chose not to take life seriously. For some people, they didn't have a choice to have a better life. Their circumstances are different. I'm speaking specifically about the area of London that I grew up in and what I saw. And so at the end of the day, it's impacted their ability to now provide, right? So the woman now has a degree. She might even have her master's or maybe even her PhD. And so she's earning 3 times as much as he is. And now he's feeling incompetent, right? And so I'm taking this back to my point of being grateful to have a man who provides for you. And for us women, it shouldn't be that, okay, providing for you means giving you a luxury lifestyle that you want to have. Providing for you is whatever is within his means. You know your husband, right? And you know if your husband makes, for example, £1,000 a month, he may not be making the 3,000-4,000 that you may be making a month. But out of his £1,000 a month, If he spends 800 out of that 1,000, taking care of you and the family and the children and paying the rent, paying for food, paying for all of these things, that is something for us women to actually acknowledge. And this is where we fail at times, because we don't acknowledge those men. And we should. We should definitely cherish them and realize that, you know what? My husband works hard. He works overtime. He does all of these things. And out of what he has, he spends most of it on us. So I'm going to be grateful to Allah to have a husband who actually provides. Because there are some men who, yes, they have the degrees, they have the masters, they have great jobs, they have great businesses. But it will be so hard for them to spend a penny on their family. They couldn't care less about raising their children or spending on their children's education or buying anything. Every time you ask them for money, their response is, I don't have any. But yet they have money to waste in other areas of their lives. So if you have a man that provides for you, be grateful to Allah for that. And show your husband that you are grateful to him for the fact that he works so hard to take care of the family. The third type of man that I think you should cherish is a man who is quick to forgive. And this also goes for a woman who is also quick to forgive. But since this video is specifically about the men, we'll stay on that path. So a man who is quick to forgive, he makes life easier. It makes living with him easier. Because us women, we make mistakes a lot of the time. The men also make mistakes a lot of the time. But especially for us women, when sometimes we're just a little bit more hormonal, okay, than usual, we tend to react in certain ways that we later on regret. And if you have a husband who has a forgiving heart, it just makes it easier for you both to be able to move on. If you have a man who takes everything so personally and he holds on to everything, he never forgets a single thing, and he never lets anything go, what that will end up building is resentment. Because over time, all he will remember are the build-up of everything you've ever done wrong. And by the time you're 10, 20 years into the marriage, if it even lasts that long, there will become a day where he will just won't be able to take it anymore. And so being able to forgive even the small stuff is very, very important. At the same time as well, I think being able to forgive even some of the large stuff is also important. I remember in one of probably my first relationship video that I ever made here on YouTube, almost 5 years ago, I remember saying that one of the keys to a successful marriage is having someone who is forgiving, having a forgiving heart, because you have to be willing to let things go. I have to keep saying this because it's so important, and that is that no human comes in a perfect package. Everyone is going to have their flaws, but you choose your husband based on the type of flaw that you think you can just about, handle and live with and kind of deal with it, even though you might not like it very much, okay? Because that's the reality. Nobody's ever going to be this perfect angel that is going to have everything you want and do everything you want whenever you want it, because he's a human as well. So having a husband who has a forgiving heart, who's able to let things go, is going to be super important for your peace of mind and for you to also be able to build that level of trust with him, and knowing that not every mistake that you make is going to become a huge issue. So I think that is something that we should cherish in our men. And if you have a man who is quick to forgive you, don't take advantage of that, because that's another thing that sometimes us women can do. We know our husbands are forgiving, and so we take advantage. Don't do that, because everyone has a limit, and you never know when that limit might get to its maximum. So it's something that you should definitely acknowledge if your husband has that, and you should cherish it. You should be grateful to Allah for it, and you should mention it to him that it's a characteristic that you love about him, and you should be grateful for that. The fourth type of man that you should cherish is the man that is faithful. I know in this day and age, I can hear some sisters watching this being like, and Nafisa, where are they? Where are the faithful men? Because we're having problems finding them. And trust me, sis, I hear you. It can be hard these days. But there are men out there who are faithful. And if you have a husband who is faithful, honestly, you have to be so grateful to Allah. Because the temptation out there these days is real, okay? It's real. And it's not just temptation from like other women and how they expose themselves and, women throwing themselves at men, which is a whole nother video I really need to do. But it's really come to my attention that there are a lot of women out there who throw themselves at men, literally, and they couldn't care less if the man is already married or if he has a family. They couldn't care less. But that's a video for another day. So if you have a man who is faithful, it's taking a lot for him to remain faithful to you, because sometimes he's also having pressure from his fellow men, because men have this thing of like, internally they feel competitive. And so before you know it, he might be using questionable ways to find himself wife number 2, 3, and 4. So if you have a man who is faithful, he's been faithful to you, guys, that is something that you really should be grateful for. He might have his other flaws, but trust me, there are too many women who are hurting inside, who are in pain because of the disloyalty that their men are showing to them. So to have a loyal husband, I'm telling you, it's almost like finding gold nowadays. It's really something to cherish, and it's really something to continue to pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help him to be faithful in his marriage, and to thank Allah for giving you a man who is faithful, because nowadays, guys, it's crazy out there. It's crazy out there. So cherish your husbands who are faithful to you. The last type of man in this particular video that you should cherish is a man who is emotionally stable. Yes, sis. An emotionally stable husband will really help to stabilize your family, because we bring our baggages with us, right? A lot of us have been traumatized from things that's happened to us in our past, some of which we have contributed towards, some of which we didn't have anything to do with. It's just things that just happened to us, right? And oftentimes we don't even realize how broken we are. And then we bring our broken selves into a marriage and we build a family, and then we pass on that broken mentality, the effect of that brokenness, and we pour it onto our children without even knowing. And so a man who is emotionally stable, emotionally intelligent, a man who is just mentally healthy is going to be such a blessing, and is a blessing to your family, not only for you as his wife, but also a blessing to your children, because he's going to raise your children well. He is going to teach them to also be mentally stable. He's going to teach them how to be secure within themselves. He is going to also be secure person within himself, and so he's going to have certain boundaries that is necessary, because I know for a lot of women, the issues that they are having is that my husband doesn't put any boundaries between his family and myself. He lets his family treat me anyhow, and for a lot of women, it's something that they're really struggling with, and some are even thinking about leaving their marriages, because the husband really doesn't even have this sense of boundary, because he's still so scared of his mother, or he's still so scared of his dad that he can't tell them no, right? So they just get to come into his family and just run things the way that they want to, and that's all because of his emotional instability and the fact that he's struggling. Now, that doesn't mean that if you have a man who is struggling emotionally, that he's not good enough. That's not what it means. But I'm saying, if you have a man who's gotten to a point where he's emotionally stable, that you have something to really be grateful for, something to really cherish. Why? Because it's going to make a huge positive impact in your life, in your relationship with him, and also in your children's lives. And on that note, I also want to say, if you have a man who's not quite there yet, then you can guide him to people who can help him. And so over time, inshallah, he will build up to become this emotionally stable man that you hope for him to become one day, if he wants to, if that's what he wants to. Because we're not here trying to fix people who don't want to fix themselves, or who don't even want to realize or recognize that they have issues, right? I'm not sending you on a project to go and find a broken man and then think you're going to be the one to fix him. But I'm saying, if you're already in that type of marriage, I don't want you to lose hope, because the man is not quite there yet. We're all work in progress, and there's things we can all improve on. But if you have a man that is emotionally stable, trust me, it's going to be so good for you, because you end up avoiding certain issues like people with narcissistic character traits, and manipulative people and liars and all of that. all of that, really what it comes down to is some type of an insecurity inside, or some type of a defense mechanism that they are putting out there in order to block what's really going on inside. So to have someone who's mentally good, mentally stable, mentally healthy and sane, honestly, I think you have gold in your hands and you should cherish that. So this was just a quick video that I wanted to put out there for us women to begin looking at our husbands in a more positive light. And if there are characteristics that your husband has that I haven't even mentioned in this video, because there are so many, we could be here all day. Honestly, I just want you to first and foremost perform sujud ash-shukr for having a husband who has those positive characteristics, because a lot of the time we women, we complain a lot about what our men are not doing, and we hardly ever praise our men for the things that they do correctly and the things that we admire about them and the things that are good about them. And at the end of the day, they may be men, then they may, society may have this created this expectation that men are supposed to be strong, and so we're not supposed to give them positive praise. But at the end of the day, they are human beings as well, and it always feels good that when you do something right and when you're on the right track, that other people acknowledge that. And so I wanted this video to just be a motivation for you and I to think about the positive male figures in our lives and the good about them, and to thank Allah for putting people like this in our lives, and to thank Allah for putting such goodness in them, and to also thank the men specifically for being someone who has such good characteristic. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you have, please make sure you give a thumbs up. Leave me a comment in the comment section down below. I always respond to as much comments as I possibly can. Just let me know your thoughts on this matter. Anything else you would like to add, let me know, and share this video with other sisters. I really want this video to get to as many sisters as possible. I think we should just work a little bit harder and being grateful for the good that we have in the men in our lives. So yeah guys, inshallah I will see you all in my next video. Assalamualaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.